Okay. So now the activity 3, the platinum PLC lease and equipment on the following terms. Date of entering lease, duration 3 years. Down payment 200,000 made on 1st April 2019. Annual lease payment 150,000 starting from the 31st March 2020. So initially down payment we pay 200,000. Then lease payments 150. Legal charges, that is the initial direct cost paid by lessee beginning of the lease 1st April 2019. Useful life of the equipment 5 years. Lease term 3 years. Now we have lease term 3 years, useful life 5 years. Not the same. Then we have to decide whether we are going to depreciate over 3 years or 5 years. So the decision should be made whether ownership transfer to lessee or not at end of the lease term. If ownership transfer, then we have to depreciate over the useful life. The ownership is transferred to lessee at end of the lease. That means we have to depreciate over 5 years, even though lease term 3 years. After lease term ownership transfer, so we can use it over 5-year period. No issue. You can depreciate over 5. It's the same activity if you are given the ownership does not transfer. Even though useful life 5 years of this asset, this business can use it only for 3 years. Because after 3 years, we are not getting the ownership. Then we have to depreciate over 3 years. Right? If the ownership transfer, depreciate over the useful life. If ownership does not transfer, depreciate the shorter of useful life and lease term. In that case, we have to take 3 years. Here, since ownership transfer, we can depreciate over 5. And the lease, the interest 12% per annum. So calculate the lease liability and right of use asset. Compute annual depreciation charges. Prepare the ledger accounts in the books of lessee and extract the financial statement extract. So discounting factor given you at 12%, we can use these discounting factors, and first you can calculate the present value of the lease payment. That is the lease liability. Then you can find the right of use asset account. And you can compute the depreciation. Can you work out quickly 1 and 2? So 3 lease rental 150, you have to discount it and take the present value of the lease payment. That is the initial amount of lease liability. Lease liability at the condition. So we can easily calculate the lease liability, right? 150,000 for 3 years to discount using the given discounting factor 0.8929, 7972, 7118. So the lease payments over 3-year period, 150,000 each. Discounting factor given. So we multiply the 150 by discounting factor, you get the present value. Take the total. Is 360,280. Yeah. And the initial amount of lease liability is 360,285. Down payment 200,000. You have to cash and debit the lease asset, right of use asset, and the initial direct cost 20,000. Altogether is 580,285. Then you are asking the annual depreciation. Here the useful life 5 years, ownership transfer. We can depreciate over 5 years. 580,285 divided by 5. Annual depreciation. $216,000. We can prepare the key accounts, ledger accounts. Right of use asset account, lease liability account, and the right of use asset depreciation account. Then you go ahead and prepare the ledger account. And the financial statement extract.
Later.
Travel. Right? So we can have the account of 360,000. So you can credit lease liability, debit right of use asset 360,000. 360,000, 285. Credit lease liability, debit right of use asset. In addition to that, we have debit right of use asset, down payment and initial direct cost. Right? Then the depreciation for the year, credit right of use asset. So credit accumulated depreciation right of use asset, debit PN. Expense. Then the repayment of lease liability, annual lease rental 150,000. The first installment we pay 150. This include interest. Interest is 12%. So opening balance into 12%. Is 43,000. So we can have the calculation of interest expense. 43,234. Plus T. That amount to transfer to P&L. So lease liability account first year can have the carried forward balance. To 53,000. Right of use asset. We have the carried forward balance 550,000. And the accumulated depreciation. We have the carried forward balance 116,000. So right of use asset, we have this 58,000 balance, the opening balance next year. Lease liability, we have opening balance of 253,000. And accumulated depreciation, we have 116,000. Now second year, also we can have the depreciation first. Depreciation for the second year, charge to P&L, same amount, 116,000. P&L and the figure. But we charge to P&L, right? This year also depreciation 116,000. Then now we are making the second installment, cash credit, lease liability debit. Interest for the second year, $253,519 into 12%, 30,412. So now we can balance the lease liability account balance carried forward is 133,000. Right of use asset, same amount you can carry forward, no difference. And right of use asset. Accumulated depreciation. You can have the carrying forward balance of 232,000. Here we can go for 30 also, right? Here I just prepare 2 years, right? You can have it last year. So last year I was paying the my after lease liability account again on 30 set account given a same balance carry forward. We did 30 year. year 2021-22. Brought forward balance 133. Now repayment 30. Interest for the 3rd year 21-22. Now the balance is 133,000. 942 into 12%. Given 30 interest. How much? 16,073. And the interest rate on 16,073 interest. Carry forward the balance. Ada මෙතනදී අපිට එක දෙයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේක 14ක වෙනසක් එනවා. right? ඒ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි කරන දේ තමයි මේකේ 14 අඩු කරලා දාන්න. මොකද මේ round up වෙලා ඒක balance එකයි total එක. interest එක balance sheet එකේ එක විදිහට ගන්න පුළුවන් finally. You are paying 150,000. Liability was 133. Difference should be the interest. මේකේ මේ වෙනසක් එන්නේ අපි decimal ignore කරලා අරන් තියන්නේ. right? අවුරුද්දේ මේක 16,073 කියලා දාලා එතන 14 තිබුණාත් it's okay right අපි සාමාන්‍ය liability ඉවර වෙද්දී fully settled. So you can adjust the difference. This is the calculation difference. So you can adjust that to the interest. Right. Then the financial statement extracts. Then we value stick a financial statement වලට ගෙනියන්න වෙනන දේ. So the financial statement extracts depreciation over 3-year period and the interest we can show. Then the non-current asset, right of use asset, depreciated by 116,000, second year 32, third year 348. So you can show the carry number. Then the lease liability, end of the first year Out of the total lease liability 253. How much current? අපිට ඔක හොයන්න පුළුවන්. මුළු ගාන 150,000 second year repayment. From that 30,422 interest. So the repayment during the second year 119,000. That is the lease liability for the current portion of the lease liability. End of the first year. දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ ගෙවන්න තියෙන එක. Total lease liability end of the first year 253. From that, when you remove 119, we have 133, right? 133,000 current. End of the second year, we have a 133,000 lease liability, which is going to settle in the third year. So full amount is current, no non-current. Okay. This is the lessee's financial state, right? In the books of lessee. Then we discuss how to prepare this lease liability repayment schedule, right? Activity 1 and 2 අපි එක හැදුවද? Schedule එකකින් lease liability එක ගෙවන්නේ. Now we had 3 activities for lessee's point of view. And we got this extract from the ledger accounts. Sometimes examination you may ask, you're given the sum, and you ask the financial statement extracts only. In that case, without preparing the lease liability account, we can identify this current and non-current portion of lease liability every year. Right? Account එක හදන්න නැතුව අපිට පුළුවන් lease liability repayment schedule එකක්. Right? එහෙනම් මම දැන් මේ activities තුනේම lease liability repayment schedule එකට යනවා. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ පළවෙනි activity එක දිනවනේ. Right? Activity 1. Right, 1 and 2 දෙකයි තියෙන්නේ. 1 එකේමනේ මේකම ledger account එක 2 වල. Right? මේ activity 1 වල what is the lease liability? We have already calculated activity 1 lease liability. Equal amount of lease liability. We got 439,000. 439,000. So ගෙවන්නේ 150, 150, 150. අන්තිම අවුරුද්දේ 170, including the guaranteed residual. We can have a schedule how this 349,000 liability is settled over the lease term. Right? That's the schedule. Here, Alice brought forward rental, make interest rate එක දෙන්නේ 15% interest rate. Repayment and balance carrying. This period 4 years. brought forward නැත්නම් opening balance කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් මේකේ පළවෙනි link අවසේ lease liability එක තියෙනවනේ. මේක 433,686. Rental ගෙවන්නේ 150,000 ගානේ අවුරුදු 4. අන්තිම අවුරුද්දේ 170 ගෙවනවා. 150 lease rental plus we had a guaranteed residual value. Right? We had an activity 1 වල. Interest එක 15. ඒතර අපිට පුළුවන් මේ opening balance එක පිළිබඳව බලන්න. This balance into 15. Then from the rental, you deduct the interest, you can find the repayment. 150 minus 65. So you can find the year-end balance. From the opening balance, want to make a brought forward, you know, what opening balance is done. Opening balance. Right? So, when you have the brought forward, and make a closing balance is done. The closing. Now the first year closing balance becomes second year opening balance. The interest 3,346. බලන්න මේ balance එකට 115. Then the repayment 150 minus 53, 96. Then out of the 355, when you deduct 96, you have 258. The 258 becomes the opening balance of 30. 258,000 into 15% is 38,000. So 150 minus 38, repayment 111. Rental again, interest account. Repayment. With the opening balance minus repayment, you will get the balance payable. Opening balance 270, 247,000. හැබැයි අපි ගෙවනවා 170,000. එහෙනම් වෙනස අපිට ගෙලින්ම ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක කියලා ගන්න. මේක 115 බැලන්ස් එකට ආසන්න වශයෙන් සමාන වෙනවා. පොඩි වෙනසක් තියෙයි අපි රවුන්ඩ් අප් කරලා ගන්න නිසා. බිංදුව වෙන්න ඕන නිසා මම මේක ඩිෆරන්ස් එක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක විදිහට ගන්නවා. So repayment 147. Liability. Now when you have the schedule, end of the first year, the financial extract හතරකොට total lease liability පළවෙනි අවුරුද්ද බැලුවොත් 355. ඕකෙන් දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ ගෙවන ගාන කෙලින් මෙතන තියෙනවා repayment 96. අපිට පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන් පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ lease liability එක classify කරලා right මේ දෙක එකතු කරපුවාම තමයි 355 හම්බෙන්නේ. දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ ගෙවන ගානයි දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ ඉතිරි වෙන ගාන. What is payable end of the second year become the first year on current liability. What is payable in the second year become end of the first year current liability. Lazy of to make one. You have P&L on interest එක වට්ටු. asset එකේ depreciation එක හොයාගත්තාම ඒක අවුරුදු 3 වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. You can easily provide the extract without preparing the account. Like if you ask to prepare the account, you should be. If you're not asked to prepare the account, you can do it as a working, or you can have a schedule. Or sometimes you may ask to prepare the lease liability repayment schedule. This is called lease liability repayment schedule. And lease amortization schedule. Now we can prepare a similar schedule for the third activity what we finish. Then we activity 1 වල schedule එක මේක දාන්න activity 1 interactive repayment schedule. Activity 1. Similarly, you can have the activity 3. මේ වගේ අපරට activity වලට හදන්න. Right, we can prepare a similar schedule for the activity 3, what we just finished, right? Lease liability repayment schedule for activity 3. brought forward කියන එක අපිට ඕන කියන්න පුළුවන් opening balance කියලා. ඊළඟට මේ closing balance. right. මේ ගානේ lease liability එකේ initial amount එක ආවේ අපිට 360,285. rental එක යන්නේ 150 ගානේ rental 3ක්. interest rate එක 12%. අපි බලනවා 360,000 into 12%. 43,000. So the repayment is 150,000 minus 43. Right? That is 106. Goes here. 150,000 minus 43,234. So the repayment is 106,766. Then the closing liability, closing balance 360,000 285 minus 106,766. We have 153,590 closing liability end of the first year. Become opening liability of the second year. So interest is 253, 590 into 12%, 30,422. So repayment is 150 minus 30,422, 119,578. Closing balance 133,942. So 133,942 opening balance. From that, 12% 16,000. Repayment 133,000. Same schedule you can have even for a loan, right? Opening balance, make another loan amortization. Right? Lease liability balance again, rental එක ගෙවනකොට ඒක ඇතුළේ තියෙන interest එක අයින් කරගන්න. Interest එක opening balance into 12%. Then you can find the repayment. So from the opening balance and deduct the repayment, you can have a person. Right? So we discuss about books of lessee. Right? මේ අපි කතා කරේ lessee ගේ පැත්තෙන් කොහොමද leases සම්බන්ධයෙන් accounts කරන්නේ. Accounting for leases in the books of lessee. Then we can move to the accounting for leases in the books of lessor. අද දීමනාකරුගේ පැත්තෙන් මොකද accounts තියන්නේ කියන්නේ. So accounting for leases in the books of lessor. When it comes to lessor, the accounting treatment will be very based on the type of lease. So we have to first classify lease, either finance lease or operating lease. You know, lease is an agreement where that one party transfer right of use asset to other party. With that transfer of right of use asset, if a lease transferred, substantially all risk and reward incidental to the ownership of the asset. Then we call it finance lease. The finance lease transfer risk and reward. Normally, you learn when you make a sale, you recognize the sales level with the risk and reward transfer. Right? සාමාන්‍ය විකුණුමක් හඳුනගන්නේ ඒ asset එක risk and rewards අවදානම් ප්‍රතිලාභ අනිත් පාර්ශ්වයට මාරුයි. Lease is not a sale, right? In a lease, lessor transfer right of use. asset for the party. With that, if the lease transfer risk and rewards, then in substance it is like a sale. So we classify it as a finance lease. Best example, you know that in Sri Lanka case, most of the people when they purchase the vehicle, they take a lease from a bank or finance company. Right? So when you get a vehicle under lease, the owner, the legal ownership is with the bank or finance company until lessee make the full pay. However, the bank has no interest about this vehicle. Right? Bank doesn't keep any risk or rewards of the vehicle. Vehicle will be transferred, vehicle will be given to the lessee. The right of use is given with the risk and reward. Right? So lessee should insure the vehicle. Right? If the market price of the vehicle increases, the benefit for the lessee. අපි බැංක් එකකින් වාහනයක් ලීස් කරොත් බැංක් එකට තියෙන එකම ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක ඒගොල්ලෝ වෙහිකල් එකේ රෙජිස්ට්‍රේෂන් බුක් එකේ ඔරිජිනල් එක තියාගන්න. රයිට්? ඕන විදිහට අල්ටිමේට් ඕන විදිහට බැංක් එකේ නවතින. හැබැයි ඒ වෙහිකල් එක ලෙසීට පුළුවන් තමන්ගේ සල්ලි දීලා ගත්ත වෙහිකල් එක වගේම පාවිච්චි කරන්න. රයිට්? එයා තමයි මේන්ටෙනන්ස් කරන්නේ, එයා තමයි ඉන්ෂුර් කරන්නේ. ඇක්සිඩන්ට් වුණොත් ඒකේ රිස්ක් එක එයා vehicle price එක වැඩිනොත් benefit එක යාට ලැබෙනවා. All that. So then that type of lease we call finance lease. So in substance, finance lease is more similar to a sale from the lessor's point of view. එක විකුණුවා හා සමානයි. So the lessor doesn't recognize the relevant property, plant and equipment item in their financial statement. Right? බෑන්ක්ස් වල ඒගොල්ලෝ ලීස් එකට දුන්න වෙහිකල් එකක්වත් බෑන්ක් එකේ මෝටර් වෙහිකල් වල පෙන්නන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ බිල්ඩින් තියෙනවා බිල්ඩින් මැෂිනරි ලීස් කරලා අරන් තියෙනවා බෑන්ක් එකේ they are not their asset. Lessor තියෙන්නේ the amount receivable from lessee, the opposite of lease liability. Opposite of lease liability තමයි එයා account කරන්නේ. Lease receivable. Operating lease, the lease that does not transfer substantially all risk and rewards. Is the ownership of the asset. So you are giving right of use asset without transferring risk and rewards. So it's in substance, it's like you are giving an asset on rent. Right? You are the owner. You keep risk and reward. But you are giving right of use asset. That building එකක් lease කරනවා 5-year period. Our building we lease out for some other part. So that we are getting the lease rent. Right? But if you want to take a fire insurance, that should be taken by us if we are the lessor. So if something happened and the building break down, right, we should bear the risk. Where the main maintainers those part also. So that is the operating lease. Risk and reward is not transferred to lessor. So in that case, the lessor will recognize the PP items, building, motor vehicle, machinery, whatever. So I keep my building, I depreciate it. Only thing, the rental that I am receiving, take it as an income. So the accounting treatment totally difference between finance lease and operating lease from the lessor's point of view. But from the lessee's point of view, whether it's a finance lease or operating lease, there is lease receipt, the lease liability and right of use asset you have to. මේ දෙකටම ලෙසීගේ පැත්තේ එයාට තියෙන lease liability එක right of use asset. So then The classification between finance lease and operating lease is based on the one condition whether risk and rewards incidental to ownership of an asset is transferred to lessee at the time of lease agreement. Agreement එක වෙලාවේදී right risk and reward transfer වෙනවද කියන. But this risk and reward transfer in risk and reward is an accounting term. Practical lease agreement, you never find that it is mentioned that with this agreement risk and reward is transferred to lessee. In practical lease agreement, you have some conditions. Looking at those conditions, we can identify whether risk and reward transfer. So it's a finance lease operating. These are some examples where when these conditions, one of these conditions is there means, the first condition is there, that means risk and reward transferred at the beginning of the lease, so it's a finance lease. These are examples. Lease transfer ownership of underlying asset to lessee by end of the lease term. Agreement specifically says that say we have a lease for 5-year period, right? Motor vehicle for 5-year period. Let's say lease out a motor vehicle, 5-year period, end of the 5-year ownership transfer. Then that 5-year will be used by the lessee. After the 5-year period, ownership of the vehicle transfer, the ownership can use for 15 years. Vehicle, lessee will use them. So it's like a sale. So it's the finance lease. The finance lease is substance එක sale එක. The release period එක අවසානයේ ownership එක lessee transfer වෙනවා. Lease period එකත් lessee පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඉවර වුණාට පස්සේ ownership එක ගන්නවා. ඒ සීග්‍රම එයා පාවිච්චි කරනවා. විකුණුවා හසම්. Then lease has the option to purchase underlying asset at a price that is expected to be sufficiently lower than fair value at the date of option become exercisable. So it is reasonably certain at the inception date the option will be exercised. So in substance it is same as the first one. It's only legal difference. First one say end of the lease period ownership transfer automatically. Second one say end of the lease period lessee has option to purchase the asset by paying a nominal fee. Compared with the real value of the asset, that's a very small amount. So it's very obvious that lessee will use the option and buy. The Lanka vehicle වලට වගේ lease වලදී බක් වෙලාවට තියෙන දෙවෙනි condition. Right? Automatically transfer වෙනවා කියන්නේ නැහැ. අද 5 million vehicle එක අවුරුදු 5කට lease කරනවා 1.2 million ගානේ ගෙවනවා අවුරුදු 5ට 6 million including the interest. අන්තිමට තියෙනවා තව රුපියල් 10000ක් ගෙවුවොත් එහෙම ownership එක transfer. Lessee can buy the or take the ownership by paying additional 10,000. It's obvious that when you are paying 5 million, 6 million for the vehicle, right? Already paid the full amount. Vehicle may be used for another 10 years. So if you are paying the additional 10,000, then only you will get the option. Right? Practically, even bank doesn't ask whether you are willing to pay. They add that into the last installment and collect it. That is in substance same as the first one. Ownership transfer. Third one, lease term. Lease term, lease period is a major part of economic life of an asset. What is economic life? Economic life of an asset different from the useful life. Useful life is something entity specific. Right? When you purchase a vehicle, right? Say 3 businesses A, B, C. A purchase a motor vehicle and estimate the useful life 5 years. That is the number of years company A plan to use this vehicle. B purchase same type of vehicle, estimate the useful life as 10 years. They are expected to keep it for 10. This vehicle can economically generate benefit maximum of 15 years or 20 years. So that 20 years is the economic life. Economic life won't change above that. අපි vehicle එක ගන්නේ අවුරුදු 20ක් economically පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් vehicle. දැන් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන අවුරුදු 5ක් තියා ගන්න නම් අපේ useful life එක අවුරුදු 5. ඊකෝ තව business එකක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා නම් අවුරුදු 10ක් they say that their useful life is 10. But the economic life is the number of years that asset will generate economic gain. Economically viable. That won't change. That is the economic life. So there's a machinery which manufacturer says that can generate use for 10 years. And a bank or finance company lease out such a machinery for a period of 10 years. The machine manufacturer to deal up machine takes fully lease करना third party. So then it's like a sale because the machine can use for 10 years. Lessee will use it for 10 years. It's a major part. Even 9 years. Because when you take a machinery which can use for 10 years, when it is leased for 9 years, it is not 90%, more than 90% economic benefit will be consumed by the lessee. Right? It's a large majority, right? Almost entire useful life. So it's a finance. Then when you take the present value of lease payment, that should be basically fair value of the asset. ඔබ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඔය දෙක කැලි වෙන්න තමයි ඔය lease installment එක හදන්නේ. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ අපි හිතමු vehicle එකක් 5 million දීලා lease කරලා ගන්නවා. වන full amount එක. බැංකුව ඒකේ වටිනාකම යාවෙන්න. ඒ වටිනාකමම lease rental වලින් යා ගන්නවා. So the present value of lease payment is basically equal to the fair value. That is the finance. That is can be from. Then underlying asset is specialized nature. That only lessee can use it without major modification. Again, I'm going to have a plant එකක් වගේ කියනවා manufacturing company එක. එහෙම factories ලංකාවේ තියෙන අපි විතරයි. අපි bank එකකින් ওই plant එක lease කරනවා. It should be a finance lease from the bank. There's no point of having risk and reward to the bank. No use. Right? So definitely it would be a finance lease. Risk and reward should be transferred. Right? So the accounting treatment from the lessor's point of view, we have to separate between finance lease and operating lease. Finance lease, lessee recognize the lease receivable. Lessee recognize the asset held under finance lease. And the term as the receivable. Make a receivable together. A receivable is සමානයි net investment in the lease. What is meant by net investment? Gross investment in the lease discounted using the interest rate implicit in the lease. This is what we take as the lease liability from the lessee. Let's go back thing. අරයාගේ lease liability එකට සමාන ගානක් ගම යාගේ asset එක වෙන්නේ බොහෝ වෙලා. මොකද lease එකේ interest එක 112යි නා. Gross investment කියන්නේ යාට ලැබෙන්න තියෙන මුළු lease rental ටික. Right? ඒ ටික discount කරාම අපිට හම්බ වෙනවා value එක present value. ඔක lease receivable. It's okay then. So you are asked to consider the activity 3. Now activity 3 එක මේ වෙද්දී lessee की පැත්තේ කතා කරන්නේ activity 3. 150 150 150 lease payment තුනක් ගෙවනවා interest rate එක 112යි. From the lessor's point of view, lessor is going to receive 150 150 150 over 3 years. The interest rate 12%. When you discount it, the lease receivable 360,285. Right? ඇත්තටම මේක තමයි මේවා දැන් මේ මැෂින් එකක් නෙමෙයි. Equipment, right? The main equipment එකේ market price එක තමයි ඇත්තටම 360,285. 560,285. Okay, asset එකේ වටිනා. From that, lessee initially pay 200,000. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ balance 360,285 paid by the bank to the seller of the equipment and lease out it to the lessee. ඒ කියන්නේ නේද ඇත්තටම ගත්තොත් මේක සල්ලි දීලා ගත්තා නම් කවුරු හරි මේ equipment එක anyone who purchased this equipment it would have cost him 560,280. Since it is a lease agreement, down payment 200,000, balance 360,285. That's what leased by the bank. That means the bank pay this 360,285 to the equipment seller. So එයාගේ පැත්තේ එයා ඔය ගෙවන ගාන තමයි lease receivable. Present value of lease payment. That ඒකට අපි net investment in lease. So that you debit lease receivable credit cash. අපි අපේ ළඟ තිබ්බ equipment අපිම නම් දෙන්නේ. You can credit that to the equipment. Right? Bank finance company එකක් වගේ නම් වෙන කෙනෙක්ට සල්ලි දීලා අරගෙන cash ගෙවලා මේක lease දෙන්න කෙනෙක් කරන්නේ. Right? So when it comes to the activity, now third activity. That one, right? So 360,285 is the lease receivable. Then he is receiving 150 every year. So you debit cash, credit lease receivable 150. And this interest, 15% into this, the 60,285, 12%. Lessor can recognize the lease interest income, finance income. So this is quite straightforward one now. Lease receivable, they are cash credit කරලා මෙතන debit කරනවා. And we can have the lease receivable account. දැන් කලින් account එකේ lease payments වල discount කරපු ගාන ලෙසෝගේ පැත්තෙන් මේ. එයා cash වලින් ගෙවනවා සක් වෙලාවට cash credit. එයාගේ equipment එකකට equipment credit වෙලා එතන debit. Then first installment lease rental received by the lessor. Cash debit lease receivable credit. Then the interest included in this, you recognize it here as interest income. Right, balance sheet account. Can have the carried forward balance. That become brought forward balance to the next year. We can quickly calculate this. So it's the opposite of the lease liability account. Now, second year, as the lessor, we receive 150,000. Then find the interest included in there. That is transferred to interest income account, comes P&L. We have the carry forward balance. Lease receivable opening balance. And we receive 150,000 installment. The difference is the lease interest and transfer to P&L. We got the interest equity to the government. Then ලෙසෝගේ පැත්තෙන් අපිට තියෙන්නේ interest income එක විතරයි. No depreciation, no asset is maintained by the lessor other than lease fee. The equipment එක right of use asset එක තියෙන්නේ lessee. Now the lease receivable, end of the first year we have 253. From that 150 receivable in the next year. From that the next year interest 30,432 deduct. You can have the current asset lease receivable. From the total lease receivable 253,519. When you deduct 119, 942 non-current part. 100. February 11th also Sunday, right? February 11th is already sports. This time, February 4th, Sunday. February 4th, let's just be out here. That's all it is. Physically, but we have online. I also proposed that, right? But the 11th we said. Formula 18th, autumn. Formula 18th, A-level marking පටන් ගන්නවා teachers at meeting එක වැටෙන්නේ 18 මම 18 දෝරේ ඉතින් discuss කරන්න ඒ වැඩ ඒ නිසා 18 ගන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ ඒ නිසා අපි 4th ගන්න වෙනවා ඒකට අපි presentation දාලා තියෙනවා 11 මොකද අපි 11th online presentation එක ගන්න වෙනවා difficult to understand. And I will ask the Jennifer to make that arrangement. No, 11th me. 11th got the bed. 4th got the bed. But I 11th කියලා කිව්වේ නේ. තාම ලැස්ති නැතුව ඇති නේ පොත්. කොහොමද ඊට පස්සේ ෆිසිකලි අවුට් එක කොහොමද? ඔයාලගේ ඊවිනිං ලෙක්චර් එක මොනවද තියෙන්නේ? ඒ කියන්නේ 1 to 5 MI නිශාන්ති we'll see what is the possibility. There was the all 11 killer as the beginning. 10 was not in. Finance kau kerana number bisa kerana ini part sama nomor baca. Ini subjek sih kemudian ada tu. Ini interchange antara kan peluang. Nanti sana ini soal pen kita ni mana ia kata not enter. Morning ini kan. 11 remote 10 question है මොනවද මේක finance තියෙන්නේ ඔයාලට finance තියෙන්නේ remote right right but right अनुराधा मिस के लिए सेट करें right अब ini mama gana right अब ini mama gana mama එතකොට dah 10 වෙනිදා මම ගන්නවා 10 වෙනිදා presentation තියෙනවා right ඒක ගන්නවා right ඒක නම් ඉල්ලන්න පුළුවන් මොකද 18 වෙනිදා මම කිව්වනේ මට එන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා ඒ ටයිම් ස්ලොට් එක අනුරාධපුර ගන්න right ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ උදාහරණයක් ඉස්සරහින් ඉන්නේ 18 ඉඳන් මීටින් එකට ඒ නිසා Sunday school teachers ලා එතකොට ගැටලුවක් නැහැ. උදාහරණයක් කම්පියුටර් වෙනවා නම් තමයි උසදාහ. Right, no issue. Yeah. Presentation, hey, right, I will upload that. So you can upload the PowerPoint by 9th. Right. Okay. Yeah. We'll discuss that. Right. ඒක පන්දින අද වෙලා නැති. නමුත් මම ටෙම්ප්ලේට් එක දාලා තියෙනවා. ටෙම්ප්ලේට් එක දාලා තියන්න. ඒකේ PowerPoint එකේ තියෙන gaps ටික තමයි කතා කරන්න ඕනේ. But today we are starting company accounts, right? මුල company accounts ලොකු ගන්න. ඒකේ time එකත් එක වෙලා ඉන්නවා. ඒ බලමු. කතා කරන්න නැත්නම් will be few minutes, right? Basically format. Okay. Right. So the presentation is on 10, right? Right. So then we can move to the this one. So the second year, the amount receivable, full amount is receivable within next year. Right. Take a current third year. That's it. So finance leases, lessors accounts, straightforward. We have the lease receivable and the lease rental income. I mean, income account has been a method DNL transfer, you know, get lease rental income. Right. It's a fourth February, which have your online session today. Right? Morning session. Right? Again, presentation name lecture. Right? We'll have it morning session. Demand තමයි නමුත් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ time මේ එක fit කරගන්න බෑ දැන් මම group නා ටිකක් පුළුවන් මේ මේක 4 hour into and right the weeks වගේ තියෙන්නේ right ඒක manage කරගන්න ඕනේ right so we don't have alternatives right okay so then the operating lease. The operating lease means in substance, it is asset given on rent. That's it. When you are giving asset on rent, you don't derecognize your asset. You are giving on rent your vehicle, your land, your building. So you keep the asset and you depreciate it as usual. PP වලින් අයින් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Only thing that any income, lease rental income you are receiving, that you charge to P&L as income periodically. Right? Straight line, P&L charge. The only difference here is there is an initial direct cost incurred by lessee. The operating lease එකට අපි අපේ building එකක් අපි operating lease එකට දෙනවා. Right, 5-year period, annual lease rental 1 million. So you can recognize 1 million into PN every year. You keep your building, you depreciate it, you recognize the depreciation. Enter into this lease agreement, you may incur some initial direct cost. That we don't charge to P&L directly because it's applicable for 5-year period. You amortize it over 5 years. Our initial direct cost එකක් less incur කරොත් ඒක එකපාර P&L දාන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක අවුරුදු 5කට බෙදලා. Yes. So here we have an activity. Beta PLC entered into a lease agreement 1st April 2019 and transferred right of use of building to Alpha for a period of 5 years. Beta had purchased this building in 1st April 2014 for 5 million. Estimated a useful life of 20 years. Right? According to the lease agreement, Alpha pay annual lease rental 400,000. Commencing from 31st March 2020. The incremental borrowing rate of Alpha 15% per annum. The initial direct cost incurred by Beta 50,000. The lessor ke පැත්තට ගියාම lessor building එක තියෙනවා 400,000 rental එක හම්බ වෙනවා. අච්චරයි යාර. lessee ගේ borrowing cost එක අදාළ වෙන්නේ lessee ගේ පැත්තේ. මේ 400,000 ගානේ අවුරුදු 5ට ගෙවන එක 15% වලින් discount කරලා තමයි එයා lease liability එක අඳුරගන්නේ. Right? Lessee's lease liability, you have to take the lease rental discounted. When you are discounting, if there is an interest included in the lease, implicit interest rate, you have to use that. If no such interest rate, lessee should use the lessee's incremental borrowing rate. Right? ඒක අදාළ වෙන්නේ lessee ගේ පැත්තට. lessor ට අදාළ වෙන්නේ lessor ගේ building එක තියෙනවා 20 years, you have to depreciate it. You can keep the building account, depreciate it. And initial direct cost lease rental 400,000 charge to P&L. Initial direct cost 50,000, you don't charge P&L directly. Defer over 5 years for the lease. Right? So here we have this building. Building වල balance එක තියෙනවා 50,000. Depreciate කරන්නේ අවුරුදු 20කට. 50 divided by 20, annual depreciation 2,500. Now we have the building 50,000, 50 million in rupees, 50,000. 20 years means annual depreciation 2,500. It was acquired on 1st April 2014 කියලා තියෙනවා. Lease එක පටන් ගන්නේ 1st April 2019 වල. Right? So we have already used 5 years. It's an accumulated depreciation that the gas passing of 12,500 there. අපි මේක අවුරුදු දෙකකට පෙන්නනවා. අපිට ඕන වෙනවා initial direct cost account එකයි lease rental income. This is usually you have to depreciate the asset first year. මේ අවුරුද්දට depreciate කරනවා. Accumulated depreciation credit, building accumulated depreciation credit, depreciation expense debit. And we are receiving the rent income. මුලින්ම ගත්තොත් දැන් අපිට පළවෙනි එක වෙන්න පුළුවන් initial direct cost එක යනවානේ agreement එක වෙලාවට initial direct cost එක cash credit වෙලා මෙතන debit එතකොට rental income එක හම්බ වෙනවා පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ when we are receiving the lease rental income cash debit rental income accounted. අවුරුද්දන්දි මේ income එක P&L එකට මාරු වෙනවා. මේක යනවනේ P&L එකට. 400. මේ initial direct cost එකෙන් අහෙන් එකක් P&L එක. Right. So the first year I completed, right? So first we are spending initial direct cost agreement එකේන වෙලාවේ අපිට යනවා 50,000 cash credit initial direct cost debit. Then end of the year we are receiving the first lease rental cash debit 400,000 lease rental income credit. Then that 400 we charge to P&L income එකට ගන්න. ඊට පස්සේ 50 වලින් පහේ එකක් අවුරුදු 5කට ලීස් කරේ. ඒ අවුරුදු 5ට තමයි අපි 50,000 වියදම 5ට බෙදලා දාන්නේ. So 110 charge to P&L, 40 you carry forward next year. You can complete the second year quite straightforward. දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ තාපහු බිල්ඩින් එක ගත්තොත් වෙනසක් නැහැ. බිල්ඩින් එකේ බැලන්ස් එක කොහොමම brought forward වෙනවා. ඉතින් එක 5 billion නේ 5,000. 5,000. මේක 5,000 වෙන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට මේක 250 වෙන්නේ නේ. 1,250. Right. Right? 5,000. 250 තමයි annual depreciation එන්නේ. accumulated depreciation 1,250 තිබුණා. අවුරුදු 5ට මේ අවුරුද්දේ 250. දැන් ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දේ තාපහු P&L එකට charge වෙන්න ඕනේ 250. balance carried forward එක වෙනවා 1,500. 1,750 එක. Initial direct cost opening balance carried forward balance become 40. මේ අවුරුද්දේ income එක හම්බ වෙනවා. entry එක cash debit lease rental income credit. Then you can transfer that into P&L. Here you see the second year. Lease rental account, first we are receiving the 400, and that you can transfer to P&L. And you can recognize this 40,000 initial direct cost balance from that 10,000 to current year P&L. And the depreciation second year. So we have the 5,000 building balance carried forward, accumulated depreciation 1,750 carried forward, initial direct cost carried forward 30, and rental account no balance that's charged to be. That's it. Right? Now we can show the financial statement extracts. Right? Mekarene. Capital lease rental income, depreciation, amortization of initial direct cost. ඒක අවුරුදු වල සමානව යන්නේ. Rental income එක 400 ආවා. Depreciation 250, amortization 10. ඊළඟට building වල non current asset so like this. Now, statement of profit or loss, lease rental 400, income එක, depreciation 250, and amortization of initial direct cost 10. What do you think of the building 50,000? It's fine, eh? 1,000. So, long here is not taking any modification. If this correct, please stop the company law. And I kept adjustment again to the pay no. So 5,000 building, activity depreciation 1,500, carrying amount 3,000 of saman. There are initial direct cost unamortized කොටසක් ඉතිරි වෙනවනේ පළවෙනිම. ඒක අපි ගෙනල්ලා මේ asset එක rent කරලා තියෙන්නේ, lease කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ asset value එකට එකතු කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මොකද මේක asset එකේ recover වෙන්න තියෙන එක. මොකද මේක depreciate වෙනවා වගේ අවුරුදු පතා මේක P&L යනවා. That is something the unamortized initial direct cost is added and take the final carry. Rest is quite straightforward. Right, so after taking out, you can have a short break, right? But we have to start at least 10:30 because we need to take this company account as main activity, right? right? So this is the first activity. So after the trial balance, we have the additional information. As per the accounting record, stated ordinary share capital of the company consists of 1.6 million shares issued at 200 each. Let's check it. 1,600 into 200. 320,000. The share capital 320,000. Okay. That is year-end balance. Company made a public issue 600,000 into 200 each, which is properly accounted, and capitalized the retained earning 1,485 shares at a price of 300 each. However, no accounting entries were made in this regard. Statement of changes in equity balance. Share issues දෙකක් තියෙනවා. Public issue and reserve capitalization. Financial asset in the trial balance represent 200,000 ordinary shares at 113 each. 200 into 113, 22,620. But we have 26,000. But then only 22,600. Balance එක තියෙනවා 23,000. Transaction cost 400 added cost of investment. A transaction cost of 400 තියෙනවා 23,000. Market price of shares of Candy 125. Year end 125. Company held these shares for trading purpose. When the company held an investment in ordinary shares for trading purpose, what is the classification of this? Financial asset at fair value through P&L or fair value through OCI. First lecture we discussed. Financial instrument, we have invested in ordinary shares held for trading purpose. Trading purpose, we don't get it. So it is fair value through P&L. If it is fair value through P&L, transaction cost should charge to P&L. They have added to cost of investment. They have rectified. And it's still recorded at the opening. Cost, the purchase price, fair value at investment day. But now it has increased to 125. So you have to make the fair value adjustment also. Right? Right. Then company entered into a lease agreement, obtained right of use of a motor vehicle for a period of 5 years. According to lease agreement, 5,500 paid down payment. The initial measurement of lease liability 10,500. First annual installment 3,500, including interest 1.1 million paid. Both down payment and first lease installment are debited to right of use account by crediting cash. No other accounting entry made. So make a සම්පූර්ණ වැරදි account කරලා තියෙන්නේ. That right of use asset 9 million. 9,000. මේ 9,000 හැදිලා තියෙන that ඒගොල්ලෝ කරලා තියෙන්නේ 5.5 million down payment එකක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක right of asset debit කරලා cash cut කරලා දෙනවා. ඒක හරි. They have not recognized the lease liability and right of use asset. Instead, the initial payment, the first installment pay, 3.5 million also debited to right of use. So when you add these two, 5,500 and 3,500, it is 9,000. Right? So අපිට මේක වැර 5,500 තිබ්බට කමක් නැහැ. You have recognized this 10,500 initial measurement of lease liability, as we discussed, double entry lease liability credit, right of use asset debit. They have not passed that double entry. So you have to adjust that. Then this 3,500 should be removed from the right of use and debit to the lease liability account. And this interest should be recognized for the first year. The second year interest එකක් අපිට ඕන. Right. We'll continue. Then the ownership of the leased vehicle does not transfer to lessee at end of the lease term. I කියන්නේ lease term එක අවුරුදු 5යි ටිකට් කරන්න වෙන්නේ අවුරුදු 5යි. Ownership will not transfer. And the lease interest for the next year is given 900,000. That is given to divide the lease liability between current and non-current. Right? Without the installment එකෙන් මේක අඩු කරලා අපිට current liability එක අඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන්. Building were revalued first time at a surplus of 2.5 million. මේක revalue කරලා තියෙන අවුරුදු දෙකකට කලින්. The remaining useful life was 18 years. Building revalued for the second time 166 million now. No accounting entry was made for the second time revaluation. Right. So we have a revaluation, second time revaluation, and then we have some addition for the property, plant and equipment during the year. This is to complete the PP note. Accumulated depreciation phase එකේ තියෙන 40,000 කියලා ඒකේ break up එක දීලා තියෙනවා 10 22 8 4. The active depreciation straight line method depreciation rates are given. Income tax liability for the year given, and the tax paid include 2,750,000 for the last year. Yeah, උත්තර ගෙවුම් එකක් තියෙනවා මේ අවුරුද්ද ගෙවුම් එක ඇතුළේ. Then company issued debentures. The financial instruments වලින් adjustment කීපයක් මේකේ තියෙනවා. Investment එකක් තියෙනවා, financial liability එකක් තියෙනවා. Financial asset and financial liability. Transaction cost 500,000 included in other expenses. Transaction cost එක liability එකට debit කරනවා. Cash credit කරනවා. They have taken to expense. Then debenture will be matured and redeemed at a discount. Effective interest rate 10%. However, interest paid under coupon rate recorded as finance expense. ඒක වැරදි. So that මේක amortized cost එකට match වෙන අපිට account එක හදන්න. ඒක හදලා නැහැ. Then transfer 2.5 million general reserve and propose final dividend 3.5 million for ordinary share. A statement of profit or loss and OCI, statement of changes in equity, statement of financial position, note. Right? Okay, then make up it a minute for the Mr. make a structure. Right, can you hear me? Right now. Right. The current asset is 4 categories. Then can have the total. Then under equity, we have stated capital ordinary shares, revaluation reserve. There's a transfer to general reserve also. General reserve and the retainer. Then the non-current liability, we have financial liability at amortized cost, the debentures, right? We have a debenture issued, right? Non-current liability, we have a debenture and lease liability both, right? Financial liability at amortized cost, that is the debenture, and the lease liability. Then the current liability, we have trade payable, income tax payable, lease liability current portion. Trade payable, tax payable, and the lease liability current portion. That's it. Right. Then we can have the statement of changes in equity. මේක අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කරන්නේ ඉඩ තියාගන්න එක, right? නමුත් මේකේ අපි දැන් ස්ක්‍රීන් එකේ අර වෙලාවට ගැටලු වෙන නිසා අපි මේ විදිහට හදා ගන්න පුළුවන් මේක statement of changes in equity 31st March 23 make us 23, right? Statement of financial position make us 23. Statements of changes in equity, the opening balance again, 1st April 22. We have 4 categories: stated capital ordinary shares, revaluation reserve, general reserve, retained earnings total. Movements, public issue of shares. capitalization of reserve, profit for the year, change in revaluation surplus, transfer to general reserve, and the closing balance. Is the structure. End of the stated capital ordinary shares, revaluation reserve, general reserve, retainer. Then opening balance, public issue of shares, capitalization of reserve, profit for the year, change in revaluation surplus, transfer to general reserve, dividend, pay. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මැද ටික හිස් තියලා opening closing balance එක දාලා adjustment වලදී තමයි හදාගන්න practically. ඒක ඔයාලා තනියම හදන්න. දැන් මේක අපිට පොඩි ඉඩක් තියෙන නිසා screen එක change කරන නිසා මම මේක මුලින්ම පෙන්නනවා. ඒක ඔයාලට ලේසි ටක් ගාලා විස්තර කරලා adjustment එක දාන්න. තනියම ගාන හදලා අපිට ගන්න වෙන opening balance එක තියෙනවා. මැද line 5ක් පිට තියෙනවා. closing balance එක දාන්න. Public issue, capitalization, profit, revaluation surplus, transfer to general reserve, dividend paid for ordinary shares. ඊළඟට අපි යනවා PP note එක. PP note එක ගත්තාම note for property plant and equipment එක 2022 cost and valuation අපිට තියෙනවා land building motor vehicle office equipment හතරක්. addition තියෙනවා. මේකේ revaluation එකක් තියෙනවා. revalue කරන්නේ depreciable asset එකක්. ඒ නිසා දැනට තියෙන accumulated depreciation අපි දන්නවා revalue කරද්දී accumulated depreciation debit කරලා asset එක credit කරනවා. අන්න ඒක පෙන්නන transfer of accumulated depreciation on revaluation කියලා row එකක් එන්න ඕනේ line එකක්. revaluation surplus or deficit, disposal, closing balance. Then the accumulated depreciation, opening balance 1st April 2022. Depreciation for the year, transfer of accumulated depreciation. Revalue කරන් තියෙන accumulated depreciation මාරු වෙනවා disposal closing balance. So the finally carrying amount 31st March 2023. Then finally, you can have the working. The working තියෙනවා. Other income, distribution expense, admin expense and other expense. The working figure මොන වෙනවා? දැන් trial balance එකේ දීලා තියෙන figures ටික අපිට ගේන්න පුළුවන්. Other income 21,000 තියෙනවා. Distribution expenses 33,000, admin 27,000, other 5,000 and finance 15,000. ඒක පහලට අපිට adjustments ටික වෙනවා. Right? Now we have had the format. So we can start one by one additional information, right? The primary additional information is the first one. As per the accounting records, ordinary share capital end of the year 1,600 into 200, it was 32,000. Company made a public issue 600 into 200. Now public issue is the public issue of shares. Statement of changes in equity. public issue of shares මේක account කරලා තියෙන්නේ 600 into 200. $180,000 public issue. Right? 600 into 200, 180. Now the trial balance we have 320,000. That is after accounting for this public issue. That means opening balance how much? 320 minus 120, opening balance is 200. That means 200 shares, 100,000 shares at 200 rupees. So opening balance එක තියෙන්නේ. මේ එතනාවේ 600,000 shares at 200 and 600 shares at 200 තමයි public issue එක. ඔක්කොම තියෙන්නේ 1600 shares කියලා කියනවා. That record කරලා තියෙන balance එකේ. So that is opening balance 1,000 shares at 200 each. Capitalization of reserves. During the year, company capitalized retained earning, that is bonus. So company capitalized shares, the bonus issue. Which is 1 for every 5 shares held at beginning of the year. Then 1,600 shares year end with the 1,600 shares තිබුණා. That is after accounting for the public issue 600. So when you take the 600 out, opening number of shares will be 1,000. 1,000 into 1/5, 200 issued at 300. 1,000 into 150 to 300. So capitalization of reserve 1,000 into 150 to 300. So which is unaccounted one. Now we can account that is 60,000. Deduct from the retained earning. After that trial balance එකේ දීලා තියෙන retained earning opening balance එක දීලා තියෙනවා අපිට 96,500 අපිට ඕන එකක් ලියා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Retained earning opening balance 96,500. Out of that 60,000 used to capitalize reserve bonus issue. Retained earning debit, state capital credit. Okay. Then we are moving to the second information. First one finish. Second one, the financial asset of the trial balance 200,000 shares at 130 plus this transaction cost 400, which is debited to the investment. එතකොට දැනට අපි නිකමට ඕනනම් අපිට දැන් key account එකක් හැදුවොත් financial asset data balance එක තියෙනවා trial balance එකේ balance එක තියෙනවා 23,000. Right? trial balance එක තියෙනවා 23000. දැන් straight debt balance එක ගත්තා. retained earning ගත්තා. ඊට අමතරව මේ 23000. And you are told the transaction cost 400,000 included in the investment. දැන් මේ transaction cost එක investment එකට දාන්න බෑ මේක P&L යනවා. Right? මේක සමන other expenses වලට යනවා. Because this is fair value through P&L financial asset. So transaction cost is capitalized to investment only when it is fair value through OCI or amortized cost. Right? Investment is specified as financial asset at fair value through OCI or financial asset at amortized cost. Transaction cost can be added. But fair value through P&L make a help for trading purpose, so should be fair value through P&L. So you can remove this. You know, May 40. Then I tell a P&L එකට යන්න. 400. 400. Right? ඒක අලුතෙන් එන adjustment එකක්. unaccounted adjustment එකක් මෙතනින් 400 අයින් කරනවා මේක working එක. අයින් කරලා අපිට මේක ගන්න පුළුවන් අර expense working එක. Here you can take the transaction cost, you can add to other expenses. 400 is added to 5,000 other expenses. Then you are told the market price is 125. So 125 into 200, you can have the financial asset closing balance. The account එකේ පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන්. Financial asset, the balance carried forward. Carried forward balance එක විදිහට අපිට පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන්. 200 into 125, 25,000. So 25,000 වලට වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ 22,600 ඉඳලා වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ account එක balance කරාම අපිට P&L එකට යන්න ඕනේ gain එක. Gain on fair value change. Gain on fair value change 2,400. 113 ගානේ අරන් තිබුණේ. දැන් 125යි. යායක රුපියල් 12ක් වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. 200 into 12 2,400. Right. This is the financial asset fair value through P&L. So this 2,400 we can take to this expense working. Gain on fair value change. The gain එකක් other income වල වෙන්නන්න පුළුවන් 2,400. Gain on fair value change you can add to the other income. Then this 25,000 closing balance, you can take in your statement of financial position financial asset at fair value through OCI. Right. We adjust the balance sheet. 25,000 current asset balance. In front of financial position, have 25,000. Right. Then we take the next. Third one, the lease. Company entered into a lease agreement and obtained right of use motor vehicle for 5 years. According to the agreement, 5.5 million paid down payment. Initial measurement of lease liability 10,500. First installment 3,500, including the interest 1,100. Both down payment and first installments are debited to right of use asset account. So they are working on the right of use asset account again. Right of use asset account. And I will have the lease liability account also same. That the right of use asset කියන එකේ නම් plot forward එකක් තියෙනවා. balance එකක් තියෙනවා 9,000. higher balance එකේ තියෙනවා 9,000. Out of this 9,000, then you are given the initial measurement of lease liability 10,500. So that is not accounted. Initial measurement of lease liability 10,500. අපි ඉස්සරලාම initial measurement of lease liability එක අපිට පුළුවන් right of use asset debit කරලා 10,500 lease liability credit කරන්න. They have not accounted it. Right of use debit, lease liability credit. Then the 3,500 first installment debited to the right of use asset, but that should be removed from here and debit to lease liability account 3,500. වැරදියට right of use asset debit කරපො 3,500 first installment එක එතනින් ගලවලා මෙතන දාන්න. එතකොට මෙතන 6,500 down payment එක තියෙනවා, lease liability එක තියෙනවා. Now this 3,500 include interest. That should charge to P&L. Interest 1,100 තියෙනවා කියලා අපිට කියනවා. මේක ඇතුලේ. උදාස් පාතිය. The first leased installment 3,500 including interest 1,100. That way they come geoptical තිබුණේ right of use asset account එක මෙතනින් අයින් කරනවා. Now you can have the right of use asset balance carry forward. Debit side 19,500. You take that to the credit side. Right of use asset is 16,000. Lease liability, let's carry forward. 8,001. That is the first install. When you enter into a lease agreement, correct double entry, value of the lease liability account credit, right of use is a debit. They have not passed that double entry. They have just done the down payment 5,500 debited to the right of use, that is correct. And the installment, first installment paid, that also credit cash and debit right of use. That is wrong. There is a liability settlement. That should be correct double entry, cash, credit, debit, lease liability. Then make a වැරදියට ගෙවලා ඉවරයි. වැරදියට then මේක දාලා තියෙන්නේ that is included in the right of use. So we remove it from right of use and debit to the lease liability. අපි අර normally cash credit කරලා lease liability debit කරේ installment. That entry erroneously they have debited right of use. So we made that correction. Now you got the correct right of use asset. Right of use asset 16,000. Then interest take 1,100 P&L දාන්න. So you can take that into finance expense. Interest on lease 1,100 you take from the lease liability account. Lease liability account credit, finance expense debit. Right. Then we recognize the right of use asset 16,000. And the right of use at 16,000. The useful life is the ownership does not transfer, lease term 5 years. So you depreciate over 5 years. So 16,000 divided by 5, you can have the depreciation of this motor vehicle. Right of use asset. Depreciation right of use asset 16,000 divided by 5. 3,200. And the question silence for what purpose we use this motor vehicle. So we can reasonably assume it is used for the distribution, delivery vehicle, some kind of right delivery van, loading or something. So I'm taking that into distribution. Otherwise, it should be given. Is used for distribution and mean what purpose, right? Motor vehicle depreciation not always classified within distribution, right? For example, if this vehicle is the managing director's car given by the company, that is not used for the distribution purpose, then it is administrative. Right? So here the question side, so we can assume that these are distribution vehicles. So then we can have the carrying amount of the right of use asset. Right of use asset carrying amount 16,000 minus current year depreciation. It is 12,800 in the statement. Then we take 1, 2, 3, 4. ඕවල කියනවා දැන් lease liability එක අපිට current non current කියලා බෙදන්න. ඒකට අපිට දීලා තියෙනවා lease interest for the next year 900. Our lease installment is 3500. 3500 installment එක. For the next year also we are going to pay 3500 installment for 5 years. That includes 900 interest. එහෙනම් දැන් අපිට පුළුවන් මේ lease liability එක. We have a lease liability $8,100. Now this we have to divide between current and non-current. How much current? Next year installment 3,500. From that we can deduct 900 interest. So in the statement of financial position, under current portion of lease liability, 3,500 minus 900. Current portion of lease liability. $2,600. And the non-current portion is from the total lease liability 8,600. When you leave out 2,600, current portion is 5,500. When you add these two, it is 8,100. Right. So we finished additional information 1, 2, 3, 4. Now fifth one, the building revalued for the first time for in the last year, previous year, right, 2 years back, resulted 2.5 million surplus. And the remaining useful life 18 years from that revaluation. Building were revalued for 166 million, right? There a building that thought. We have building at valuation 180 theatre. And we were given the accumulated depreciation breakup. Building 10,000, motor vehicle 22,000, office equipment 8,000 opening balance. So we can go to the PP note. Right. The PP note එක අපිට පුළුවන් නේ මේ ටික පෙන්නන්න දැනට opening balances තියෙනවා. Building 10,000, motor vehicle 22,000, office equipment 8,000. Accumulated. Building වල දැනට balance එක තියෙනවා 180,000. Which was revalued last year, but no addition or disposal to the building during the year So opening balance, beginning of the year balance of the building should be 180. What is there the trial balance? Because this is without accounting for the current year revaluation. Revaluation account නොකර තමයි 180 තියෙන්නේ. Addition disposal නැහැ. එහෙනම් අවුරුද්ද මුල තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ 180 තමයි. 180 which was after revaluation in the previous year. Revalue කරාට පස්සේ. එතන මේ and remaining useful life was 18 years. එහෙනම් මේ අවුරුද්දේ depreciation එන්න ඕනේ කීයද? 180 divided by 18. Current year depreciation එන්න ඕනේ 10,000. Right. That's VCA revalue කරලා තියෙන්නේ. අතන 22 වෙනිදා අවුරුද්දක් depreciate කරලා ගිය අවුරුද්දට 10,000 තිබුණා. මේ අවුරුද්දට 10,000 depreciate කරනවා. On the last revaluation of 2 years ago. Then you are going to revalue this asset end of the year. Before revaluation, we have to transfer any accumulated depreciation to the asset account. Accumulated depreciation debit asset account credit kar. So carried value of the asset now decreases to 160. Now we have revalue this for 166. Let me revalue කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ අවුරුද්ද revalue කරා කියලා අපිට දීලා තියෙනවා 166. 160 revalue for 166 million. Again 166,000. Again 60,000. 66 6,000 වල revaluation surplus එකක් තියෙනවා. 100 තිබ්බ එක 166 වෙනවා. 6,000 revaluation surplus. Right? It's a building. First time revaluation, we had a surplus. Second time also surplus, no issue. So this surplus you can record into other comprehensive income. අලවිට පාර deficit එකක් තිබුණා නම් මේකෙන් ඒ ප්‍රමාණය reverse කරන්න. Right? But here first time surplus, second time surplus. So you can take this into other comprehensive income 6,000. Change in revaluation surplus 6,000. You can record another comprehensive income. Right? Right. Then PP note එකේ building වලට දාලා adjustment එක අපි consider කරා. Then addition made for office equipment and motor vehicle. So office equipment and motor vehicle, office equipment 30,000, motor vehicle 20,000 added, which are properly accounted. හැබැයි මේක අපිට දීලා තියෙන්නේ PP note එක complete කරන්න. note එකේ addition වල පෙන්නන්න පුළුවන් අපිට motor vehicle 20,000, office equipment 30,000 addition. Right. Then the closing balance. Trial balance එකේ අපිට දීලා තියෙන්නේ asset land දීලා තියෙනවා. Land 120,000 during the year no movement. So you can take this 120,000 closing balance of land as it is. That's the same balance. It goes the opening balance. Land ගත්තොත් opening balance එකේ closing balance එකේ සමානයි. අවුරුද්ද ලිපි එකක් වෙලා නැහැ. Building වල අපි opening balance එක හොයාගත්ත අපිට calculate කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන් closing balance එක ඇත්තටම 166 එක කොහොමද revalue කරපු value. Motor vehicle closing balance 140. Now this 140 given 140,000, which is given in the trial balance. That 140,000 after accounting for 20. So the opening balance should be 120. No addition, no disposal. Sorry, no transfer of depreciation, revaluation करना है motor vehicle. Then office equipment closing balance 80,000. This is after properly accounting for this addition 30. That 80 තියෙනවා. addition එක account කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් opening balance එක 50 වෙනවා. ඒක disposal නැහැ මේක. right? අපි නමුත් note එක complete වෙන්න නැත්නම් අපි disposal line එක දානවා සම. right? ඔයාලා පෙන්නන්න ඕනේ. PP වල addition, disposal, revaluation of common. Disposal නැහැ ඒක ඇත්ත. නමුත් you can just show the disposal column. එතකොට total කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ column එක cost එක. Then you can calculate the depreciation of motor vehicle. So the useful life of motor vehicle is given for the depreciation rates of motor vehicle 10% per annum. Office equipment 20% per annum. But the motor vehicle there was an addition 20,000 on 1st January. එහෙනම් මේ 1st January addition කරපු 20,000 මාස 3යි depreciate කරන්න. Right? Opening balance 120,000 you can depreciate for the full year. Motor vehicle addition made on 1st January. එහෙනම් ඒක depreciate වෙන්නේ මාස 3යි. 12න් 3යි කියන්නේ 125යි. අපි depreciation හැදෙනවා. Motor vehicle depreciation should be 13,050. they get 120,000 into 10%. Sorry, 20%. 10%. 120,000. 10%. Listen right there. This year. मैं दोस्त था. Addition make it 20,000 into 20% into 12 months. 12 months क्या है? 12,500. opening balance එක 10යි. ඊළඟ එක 10යි. 12,000 plus 500. 12,500. Office equipment ගත්තාමත් එහෙමයි. Office equipment 30,000 අවුරුද්ද මැද අරන් තියෙනවා 1st October. So that should be depreciated only for 5 months. එහෙනම් 50,000 20%. එතන එනවා 10,000. Then 30,000 20% 6,000 for 6 months 3,000. මෙතන 50,000ට 120 ඒක අවුරුද්දට 10,000යි. 30,000ට 120 6,000යි. හැබැයි මාස 6කට 3,000යි. So you can complete the PP note. ඒකේ disposal නැහැ. Can have the accumulated depreciation. Motor vehicle added on 1st January 2023. Right? Year end 31st March, only 3. So finally, the carrying amount is 506,000 minus 450,508. The final balance. We can take these 3 depreciation into our expense working. Right, so we can take the 3 depreciation: building, motor vehicle, office equipment. This expense working. So building 10,000 we can take for administrative, motor vehicle distribution, office equipment admin. Can add those expenses. Debit expense and credit accumulated depreciation. $10,000 to admin, building depreciation, motor vehicle depreciation 12,500, and office equipment 13,000. Right. So we have considered additional information number 6 and 7. 5, 6, 7. PP note එක ගත්තී මෙටි ඉවරයි 7, 8. Right, tax liability. Tax liability for the year ending 7,200. Income tax paid include 2,750 paid for the last year. Now we have income tax payable for the last year. Provision for income tax we have 3,000. ඊයවුරුද්දේ 3,000 ගෙවන්න කියලා තිබුණා. මේ ගෙවලා තියෙන්නේ 2,800. That means last year we have 250 over provision. Right? එහෙනම් මේ අවුරුද්දේ tax expense එක වෙන්න ඕනේ. මේක ලේසිම විදිය තමයි. Current year income tax expense is you can take the income tax paid, the total income tax liability minus over provision. ඊයවුරුද්දේ over provision එකක් තියෙනවා. 3,000ක් තිබුණා ගෙවන්න උනේ 2,800. ඊයවුරුද්දේ වැඩිපුර ගිහින් තියෙනවා. 250 මෙතනින් අඩු කරලා. Can have it 6,950. 7,200 minus 250. Total tax liability minus over provision. If under provision was there, I mean, 2,500 different. We have paid 2,750, so 250 more. Then you are adding it. 7,200 plus 2. That's it. Then we can have tax payable, income tax liability that we can calculate total tax liability, total income tax for the year 7,200. එක ගානේ දීලා තියෙනවා. Income tax paid during the year, that is there in the trial balance, tax paid 6,000. But the 6,000 include 2,750 paid for the last year. එහෙනම් මේ අවුරුද්දට ගෙවලා තියෙන්නේ ඔය 6,000න් 1,750 බඩු වෙනවා. So that is what we have paid for the current year. The total tax liability 7,200. From that we have paid only 3,250. Balance is payable. That is the tax payable 3,950. Tax total income tax liability for the year 7,200. Paid during the year 6,000, of which 2,750 relevant to last year. So what we have paid for the current year is 3,250. So out of 7,200, when you deduct 3,250 paid for the current year, balance is payable for the current year. That is the tax liability. End of the year. අවුරුද්දේ මුළු ආදායම් පද 7,200යි. 6,000ක් ගෙවලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි 6,000ක් තියෙනවා ගිය අවුරුද්දට ගෙවුව 2,800. ඒක අයින් කරාම මේ අවුරුද්දට ගෙවලා තියෙන්නේ 3,200. මේ ටික වේ. Then we have a debenture issue. දැන් debenture account එකේ තියෙනවා balance එක 50,000. I will have this debenture account. Financial liability debenture. We have the balance. Trial balance එක දීලා තියෙනවා 60,000. Right? And දීලා තියෙනවා 60,000. Transaction cost එක ඉන්ක කරපු transaction cost එක දැනට වැරදියට the expenses වල දාලා තියෙනවා transaction cost 500. Erroneously included in other expenses. නේ? Transaction cost incurred $500 including other expenses. That is wrong. So you can remove that transaction cost 500 from other expenses. And මෙතන expense working එකේ transaction cost of debenture 500 other expenses එකෙන් අයින් කරන්න. වැරදියට ඒක ලියලා තියෙනවා. Right? So that 500 remove from transaction cost and debit to debenture account. Then the interest paid under coupon rate charged to finance expense. ගෙවපු interest එක coupon rate එක 15%. 60,000 into 15%, 9,000. 9,000 included in this finance expense. But that 9,000 should debit to debenture account. Cash. Interest එක ගෙවපු එක amortized cost එකට ගෙවපු interest එක debenture account එකට debit වෙනවා cash එක. Interest expense should be the effective interest rate. Effective interest rate දීලා තියෙනවා 12%. Redeemed at a discount, so the effective interest rate 10%. Sorry, 10%. 10% බලද්දී බලන්නේ 60,000 අපිට issue කරලා හම්බුණා. Transaction cost එක 500 ඉන්ක කරා. ඒතර net amount එක 59,500 to 10%. So 5,950 තමයි interest expense එක P&L debit වෙලා මෙතන credit වෙනවා. So then finally you can have the balance of the debenture account. Debenture account balance is 55,450. So we can have this debenture account balance to the statement of financial position. Financial liability debenture.
Do we need to remove cash in the slide?
Yeah.
So we need to remove cash in the slide.
Now the interest paid 9,000. Interest paid 9,000. Right? Maybe remove කරනවා කියන එක නෙමෙයි මේ අදහස් කරේ just to identify this. This is already paid and debited to the interest expense. Right? So we are removing from interest expense and debit here. Make double entry කරනවා යන්නේ interest expense. Interest expense. That's erroneous entry. Erroneous to interest expense. You credit interest expense and debit. Right? මේකට actually give interest එක කියලා පෙන්නන්න ඕනේ මේක දැන්. නේ? If you like the double entry is at the moment erroneously debited to the interest expense. We credit interest expense, deduct and debit. මේ තමයි හරි විදිහට වෙන්නේ ගෙවන interest එක debenture account එකට debit වෙන්න ඕනේ. Effective interest rate එකේ debenture account එක credit වෙනවා. But they have done the interest paid credit cash and debit to the interest finance expense. So we remove from the finance expense, credit finance expense and debit. Okay. So correct interest expense at effective interest rate 10%, that is 60,000 minus 500, 59,500, 10%, that is what we charge to give. Right. 9,000 is, that is what they have paid. Right. Right. What balance is there? That's it. So that when you are using the formula, something like that. 56,000. That's it. 56,450, yes. Financial liability. Debate the 56,450, right? And also, right. We have account එක balance කරන්න ඕනේ ඊට පස්සේ. Right. මේ වගේ. New balance it 56,000. Right. Then finally, board of directors decide to transfer 2,500 to general reserve. Right. ඒක සාමාන්‍ය general reserve වලට මාරු වෙන එක. Transfer to general reserve, statement of changes in equity. 2,500 deduct from retained earning and add to the general reserve. Raspansiya retained earning වලින් අඩු වෙලා general reserve වලට එකතු වෙනවා. Then we can take the total of these expenses. The expenses වල total එක ගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට. So we take the total, right? Can take these totals. Other income, distribution, admin, finance. Right? We are out of the time. I will take those figures here. ඊළඟ trial balance එකේ තියෙනවා sales cost of sales. You can just take them from the trial balance. Gross profit එක අපිට calculate කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Profit before tax එක calculate කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. So final profit for the profit for the year එකට change in revaluation surplus එක ගියාම total comprehensive income 16,800. PPE, we have already calculated the balance at book value. Then inventory, trade receivable, cash, just take from the trial balance figure. If you trial balance again, ගත්තාම statement of changes in equity total කරාම අපිට එන balance sheet එකට ගේන්න පුළුවන්. මේ profit එක ගිහිල්ලා retained earning වලට එකතු කරන්න, right? A tally bill of 565,800. Right? Okay. So the next Sunday we will have online session, right? So we'll continue the company accounts. I'm going to answer because I have another session at 12 actually. Right? So the other group is waiting. So basically you should be able to make these adjustments. So far I consider this activity only leasing, financial assets and the PP. Right? HRI make a tibune adjustment. Leasing, leasing, financial asset, property plant and equipment. Income tax tibune, deferred tax නැතුව. Right? So අපි ඉගෙන ගත්ත ඒ වගේ ඊට අමතරව there are some other strands in the syllabus which are going to make your presentation. Presentation in පොඩි guide එකක් LMS එකට දාලා තියන්න. Right? So you can use that and we can discuss on the third. Right? I will brief further. Right?
Can we put a copy of this?
No, Excel I am not sharing. Right? On the Excel එක share කරනවා කියන්නේ that's a different story. Right? That is only for your kind of online or kind of self-study mode. Right? මේක ඔයගොල්ලෝ හදන්න. Right? මම මේක ඊළඟට දාන්න ඔයගොල්ලන්ට note down කරගන්න. You can now complete this one. Right? So if you have any issue, right, we can take about 15 minutes complete, right? Okay. Right. So make sure join on the next day of your online session, right?